Chapter 6. "Can you believe Mrs. Henley's giving us more homework?" said a girl's voice as he left the classroom. Lionel turned back to see Malika. He hadn't even noticed her following him because he was so upset. "It's like she forgets we have 6 other classes." "I know," Lionel agreed, unsure for a second what to say to her. He never talked to girls about school, especially someone like Malika who handed in her assignments and raised her hand in class. Except for Mrs. Henley, they had nothing in common. "It's like she likes torturing us or something," he added. Dontrell emerged from the classroom right behind them but turned away with a grin when he caught them talking. Lionel pretended not to see him. "I think she especially likes torturing you," Malika replied as they walked down the hallway. "But that's your fault." "Huh?" "She can't figure you out. Sometimes you act like you hate school. Then you get all serious like today. Other times you act like you're trying to be funny." "What, you don't think I'm funny?" Lionel joked, ignoring her comment about school and pretending to be hurt. He couldn't help but notice the caramel glow of her skin, the graceful curves of her hips and her jeans, the distracting way her t-shirt rested on her chest. "You're kind of funny. Corny, too, especially for a basketball player," she teased. She stared at him with her chocolate eyes, and he nearly forgot why he'd even been upset. Lionel shook his head, feeling a bit embarrassed. "So what you think of my game?" he asked, trying to tease her back. "I know y'all were watching me." "Maybe we were, maybe we weren't," she replied, shrugging her shoulders as if she didn't know what he was talking about. She couldn't hide the glow of her smile, though he could see she tried to. "What you think? Go on, be honest." "You're okay." "Just okay?" "Maybe a little better than okay. Just a little, though," she said, squeezing her fingers together to make her point, a wide grin on her face. "You think you can school me? Let's hit the court right now. You gotta promise not to elbow me, though," he joked. "Hey, I got some game," she replied with a look that said she was only half kidding. "Oh, that's right. You a track star. Tasha got a film of you too? Maybe I can watch it." "Not yet, but you watch me this spring. I'm just getting started." "That's how I feel. Give me a few years, you'll see," he said, surprised at his own honesty as they walked further down the hallway. "So why you want to be a basketball player anyway? That's what you're going to write about in your essay, right?" Lionel cringed for a second. "My essay?" he asked, remembering Mrs. Henley's assignment. He didn't want to lie to Malika, but he couldn't tell her the truth, that he knew he'd fail even if he handed in his best work. "We'll see. That's a long story," he said with a sigh. "See, there you go, getting all serious again, just like in class," she said, watching him for a few seconds as they reached a stairway and stopped. He felt as if he was a book and she was flipping through his pages. "You sure you just want to be a basketball player?" "Just a basketball player?" he asked, his head spinning at her question. To him, the words meant everything: power and respect where there was none, an escape from the streets, a guarantee his parents could be together without worrying about money, a home with a yard where Kendra was safe and Sahara could play. That was his dream, one he couldn't write for Miss Henley or explain to Malika in the middle of the hallway between classes, though part of him wanted to. "What do you mean, just a basketball player?" he challenged. "What's wrong with that?" "Nothing." She walked away slowly but then turned back. "It's just usually I don't like basketball players," she said with a radiant smile and raced up the steps. Lionel felt as if she'd just dunked on him as he moved on to his next class. For the rest of the day, Lionel's teachers picked up where Mrs. Henley left off. In pre-algebra, Mr. Stevens gave a pop quiz, passing out a sheet with 2 problems on it. Lionel had always been good with numbers. For years he followed scoring totals and statistics for many NBA players, but this quiz contained word problems. Lionel had barely finished the first one before time had run out. "Another 50, he thought to himself. Mr. Stevens frowned as he glanced at Lionel's half-completed answer sheet before collecting the rest of the class's work. Later, in the middle of history class, Ms. Brooks called on Lionel to answer a question about ancient Egypt. "Can you tell me what Egyptians used papyrus for?" she said. Yeah, they smoked it, Lionel joked. Several students laughed, but Miss Brooks didn't smile. She repeated her question. He had no idea what the answer was and knew if he waited long enough she'd move on to someone else. Lionel, she asked again, almost as if she was mocking him. A few hands went up. Seconds ticked by, and he could feel his anger building. Why wouldn't she just let it go? His pulse throbbed in his head, but he kept still, his eyes focused on the window. Outside, the sun was shining. If you'd read your homework last night, you'd know. It was used as paper for writing, she explained. In fact, it's where our word paper comes from. So maybe they did smoke it, someone said, and the class snickered. Lionel remained motionless, and Miss Brooks steered the discussion away from him. But inside he felt as if he was sinking again, just as he had in his other classes. When the bell rang, Miss Brooks told him he was going to have to sit at a desk in the front row from now on. It'll help you get more focused, she explained. She also warned that his poor attitude and lack of participation was going to be reflected in his grade. Lionel stared unblinking at the chalkboard as she spoke. In his final class, physical science, Mrs. Copeland made everyone sit in a big circle so they could do an experiment. She asked Lionel and 2 other students to come forward to help demonstrate something called momentum. Eric and Antoine, the other 2 students, stood up right away, but Lionel hesitated. He wasn't in the mood to be in front of the class with everyone staring at him. Come on, Lionel, you can do this. It's easy, she said, urging him into the center of the circle. It will only take a minute. Lionel felt his face burn at the word easy. Maybe she didn't mean it, but it sounded to Lionel like an insult. Even someone stupid like you can do this, Lionel, she might as well have said. Lionel decided right then that he wouldn't budge. First, he ignored her, acting as if he hadn't heard her speaking to him, but she kept asking him, putting him on the spot. No, I can't do it, Mrs. Copeland, he said finally, his anger bleeding into his voice. It's too hard for me. Excuse me? She stepped back and turned her head to the side. Just like on the court, he saw where she was going, predicted her reaction, and figured out how to avoid her next move. I don't feel good today, Mrs. Copeland. I think it's something I ate, he replied, acting sincere. It was another trick he used since middle school. Sometimes it even seemed as if teachers were relieved to get him out of their class. My stomach hurts. I think I need to go to the nurse. Mrs. Copeland studied his face. He knew she was trying to figure out if he was serious. Part of him felt bad for lying, but another part wanted to get away from what he knew was coming. Another nagging lecture, another pointless warning about his decline in school. He didn't need to hear it. Here, she said finally, handing him a hallway pass. Minutes later, Lionel was stretched out on a smelly vinyl cot in Nurse Wilkins's office. He lay motionless as the clock ticked away the last period of the day, and his mind dreamed of a time when school would be nothing more than a memory. After the final bell, Lionel bolted from the nurse's office and headed down the speckled gray hallway toward his locker. The halls were filled with the crash and thud of lockers being slammed shut and the voices of students rushing to get out. But Lionel spotted something that stopped him in his tracks. The nurse's office was close to the gym, and Lionel noticed that one of the thick steel doors of the gym was partially open. The hardwood floor glowed honey golden against the dull tiles of the hallway. Lionel stopped and peeked inside. Long rows of navy and yellow sports banners hung proudly over the empty gym. Each was sewn with Bluford's mascot, the Buccaneer, along with a symbol for the sport that had won it. The top of each banner listed the team name and year. Most of the banners were for the football team. Others were for wrestling. Only 3 said Bluford basketball, and they were all old. He read the years. 1995, 1999, 2004. Since then, basketball hadn't won anything. Someone's got to change that, Lionel thought to himself. Not far from the door was a metal rack full of basketballs. He knew he shouldn't walk in without asking, but no teachers were in sight, and he couldn't resist. The quiet court called him. Lionel stepped onto the hardwood, feeling the smooth surface under his feet. He wished he had his good Nikes on, the ones he saved for his PAL games, as he walked over and took a ball from the rack. He bounced it, as always, feeling the grip, the air, the rock-like firmness. It was perfect. And then he was possessed, driving to the glass of Bluford's varsity court, letting the ball roll off his fingers and sink through the bright new net, banging down shots from the baseline, nailing jumpers short and long with a swish as sweet as a kiss. The stress of school and home evaporated with his sweat as he worked. "This court is closed, son. You're not supposed to be here," came a scratchy voice from somewhere behind him, snapping his concentration. Bang! Lionel's last shot ricocheted off the rim. He turned back to see a middle-aged man with gray streaks in his hair. He wore a short-sleeved navy blue shirt and carried a clipboard in his hand. A whistle dangled from his neck. The man walked closer as Lionel rushed to retrieve the basketball. I'm sorry," Lionel stammered, putting the basketball back in the metal rack. "I just saw the court and figured you'd take some shots," the man asked with a knowing smile. Fine wrinkles stretched from the corners of his eyes, but otherwise he looked strong and fit. "Yeah, I guess so," Lionel shrugged. He started walking back toward the hallway. "I used to be the same way. Still am sometimes," the man said, wheeling the squeaky metal basketball cart into a nearby closet and closing the door. Lionel was about to leave when the man spoke to him again. "Think you can shoot like that in a game?" It was one question Lionel knew the answer to. "I know I can," he said. The man smiled and pulled out a pen. "What's your name, son?" "Lionel Shepard." The man scribbled into his clipboard and then squinted his eyes as if he was recalling a distant memory. "Did you play for Bruce Harden in the PAL League this summer?" Lionel nodded. "Yeah, we won the championship." The old man smiled and shook his head. "I used to be his coach. We still talk from time to time," he said, reaching his hand out to shake Lionel's. "I'm Coach Barber, and I suggest you come to basketball tryouts on Wednesday. You won't have to sneak in here then." "I'll be there," Lionel said, his heart pounding as he shook Coach Barber's hand.